She was telling me the story in the car, and I interrupted her to say she should share that story with you, at least those that will be here in the last minute. Lisa, please, can you come and finish the story, please?
I'm here to talk about Bimbia, a site of transatlantic slavery in Cameroon that really very, very few people knew about in 2010. So I'm looking forward to the lecture, and I will tell you more about it. Just the short story that we mentioned in the car. I haven't been here 24 hours yet, but I've gotten some great gifts already. One is a book about Balengu. Do you all know Balengu? Yes. Well, I got to know Balengu when I lived in Cameroon. And I will talk not only about the site of transatlantic slavery, but about our ancestors who were taken away from the Cameroon territory. Some of them, we imagine, were actually taken away through Bimbia. Well, what is happening with the African diaspora is that a major breakthrough has been made in DNA technology that allows us to trace our roots. Wow. People like me, whose ancestors were born in the diaspora, yes, to the geneticists that have done the work, yes. It's nothing but revolutionary that there's a DNA technology that traces roots. And now we can know if our roots go back to what was Nigeria in the 1800s, 1700s. Now we can know if we are Igbo or if we are Yoruba. In Cameroon, we can know if we are Bakweri, if we are Tikar, if we are Bamileke, if we are Iwando. And as we know, I can't mention all of the ethnic groups because Cameroon has about 300. Yes.
I got leaves and I'm going to truck.
Yes.
Yeah, going to Fox, yeah.
Wonderful. So now that we've been using this technology since the 1990s, African diasporans are wanting to know more. They are saying, okay, Bamileke, but now we know that Bamileke is in West Cameroon. It's a big area. There are many villages. That we would like to know, beyond being Bamileke, what village do we come from? What is our home area? Who are our grandparents? Who are our grandparents? So beyond the ethnic group, beyond knowing Yoruba, they want to know the village. Beyond being Bamileke, beyond being Tikar, they want to know the village. So I've gotten a chance to work with some phones in Cameroon, in Bayangam, you all know Bayangam, in Batufam, in Bamenjinda, and other places. And They are using traditional African science to help us pinpoint the village that African diasporans come from. So we are absolutely thrilled to identify an ethnic group, but now we are hoping to know the actual village. And Arnold, the part of the story that I didn't get to say in the car is that with the fund of Bamenjinda and some of the traditional scientists that he has worked with, that I have a dear friend who came with me to Cameroon on a pilgrimage to Bimbia and other places. And she knew in general that she is Bamileke. After hundreds of years, she came to know this. And with the help of the fund of Bamenjinda, they identified her village as Balengu. Imagine. This is incredible. So what we are able to do with DNA technology and African traditional science is absolutely mind-blowing, absolutely amazing. So I look forward to the next few days with you all, and I want to thank AfroMix and thank Arnold and his family, his wife Claire and family, and all of you. So thank you.
So, thank you, merci. Je pense on peut clôturer la soirée. Vous avez écouté un tout petit peu de l'histoire je dirais, une partie de nos racines qui a été établie de l'autre côté de l'Atlantique. Mais cette histoire est plus profonde que nous pensons. Et je suis honoré que Lisa a pris cet engagement de faire les recherches scientifiques dans ces profondeurs pour pouvoir nous réunir ou bien pour pouvoir nous reconnecter dans le sens où les uns et les autres peuvent maintenant reconnecter avec leurs, je disais, frères ou sœurs qui ont été déportés de l'autre côté de l'Atlantique en tant que, ou bien dans les traites négrières telles que nous connaissons de façon superficielle. Je pense que cette recherche est fondamentale parce que ça entre maintenant dans la profondeur des choses et ça nous révèle beaucoup. Ça nous révèle beaucoup des émotions. Des fois, c'est vraiment triste, des fois joyeux, mais ça fait partie de notre histoire. Donc, on accepte ça en tant que notre histoire et on doit gérer cette émotion, j'espère aussi avec une maturité en grandissant, quoi. Parce que c'est dépendant de l'histoire, dépendant des circonstances, c'est malheureux. Des fois aussi, ça peut vraiment évoquer la haine, ça peut évoquer la rage, mais avec une maturité, on peut, et j'espère qu'on va pouvoir gérer ça avec l'honnêteté pour pouvoir nous regarder en face et dire si c'est nos ancêtres qui ont fait, ou bien nos grands-parents qui ont vendu certains de nous, ou bien ils ont été capturés, ou bien il y a eu des conflits comme nous on nous dit à l'histoire, on a quand même un chemin commun aujourd'hui pour pouvoir se reconnecter et bâtir une avenir meilleure. Je pense que ça doit être une démarche qu'il faut aborder. Il ne faut pas avoir peur parce qu'on se dit l'autre est américaine et on regarde la télévision et à la télévision on voit seulement la violence et on se dit parce qu'il est américain il faut fuir la personne. Mais il faut essayer de se reconnecter avec ces personnes. Tu ne sais pas, ça peut être ton frère, ça peut être ta soeur. Et en faisant ces recherches et reconnecter avec ce monde-là, ça ouvre encore beaucoup plus de valeurs que je pense qu'on peut mieux développer ça pour le bien-être de tout le monde. Merci encore d'être venu. Comme j'ai dit, cet événement est conçu pour la communauté et je souhaite que ça ne sera pas la dernière. Donc on va quand même produire plus de ce genre d'événements. Peut-être un peu plus organisé. On a besoin de personnes qui vont soutenir dans les différentes activités. Par exemple, vous avez vu les cadeaux qui est resté toutes les heures au grill. Lui aussi pouvait aussi avoir quand même quelques moments de repos. Donc, il faut quand même une équipe pour s'en occuper de ça. On avait monté une tente ici. Bon, je suis venu, on a déjà regardé ça. Pour moi, ça me fait jouer au cœur que ce n'est pas toujours moi, ce n'est pas toujours les mêmes personnes qui montent et qui sentent les choses. Donc, la communauté doit prendre ça en charge, quoi. Ce qui est plus important, c'est que les gens se rapprochent de l'un et des autres pour mieux connaître l'un ou l'autre. On ne peut pas connaître l'un ou l'autre en regardant la télévision ou bien en le voyant seulement en distance. Donc, plus qu'on se rapproche de l'un et de l'autre, plus qu'on pense comment mieux travailler ensemble. C'est vrai que ce n'est pas toujours facile de travailler avec les gens, mais ça ne sert à rien de fuir les gens. C'est ce que je pense. Oui, c'est vrai que quand tu côtoies certaines personnes, tu constates que vous ne faites pas le même chemin, vous ne réfléchissez pas de la même façon. Oui, les esprits se séparent à ce moment, mais il ne faut pas avoir peur de côtoyer les gens pour quand même voir ce que tu peux apporter dans ces relations. C'est ce que moi je pense. Toujours est-il que de mon côté, de ma personne, ça m'a rapproché de Lisa et on a pu développer ce qu'on a développé aujourd'hui. Et je pense que pour l'avenir, son travail, comme je dis, c'est un travail fondamental. Je pense que beaucoup d'autres personnes observent ce qu'elle fait, malgré le fait qu'elle ne connaît pas les gens qui observent ce qu'elle fait. Mais il y a beaucoup de personnes qui observent ce qu'elle fait et très souvent elle-même, elle est surprise qu'il y a telle autorité qui observe ce qu'elle fait, même elle a dit, demande, mais qu'est-ce que tu fais et comment tu le fais? Je me rappelle une histoire qu'elle m'avait rencontrée avec, je pense, vous tous, vous connaissez Martin Beliga et Boutou. Oui, elle peut vous raconter aussi cette histoire. C'était vraiment drôle, mais elle a vécu beaucoup de ce genre de moments et d'expériences. Bon, on ne va pas tarder là-dessus. Je pense que tout le monde, ou bien beaucoup de personnes ici vont aller voir la Champions League, finale de la Champions League. Donc on va emballer les choses et on se dit à la prochaine. Au moins, vous savez là où le parc est aujourd'hui. Donc, si quelqu'un te dit le parc est là, il est où? Vous pouvez signaler aux gens que non, nous connaissons la route. Ou bien vous les donnez l'adresse de venir. Ce n'est pas les mêmes personnes. Je ne sais pas comment venir. Toutes ces choses, pour moi, ce sont des alibis pour vous. Si les gens veulent venir, ils vont trouver le moyen. Tout le monde sait utiliser Google aujourd'hui. Bon. 90% des personnes savent utiliser Google pour pouvoir se retrouver dans... Quand les gens commencent à dire l'adresse, je ne sais pas quel bus qui part, ça pour moi ce n'est que les alibis pour dire bon, je m'excuse pour ne pas venir, quoi. Oui, une fois de plus, merci d'être venu et je vous souhaite quand même une agréable soirée et que votre équipe de joie remporte la Champions League. Ok.
Et il y a un parking, c'est important.
Il y a un parking, oh. Ah oui. Pour les gens vécus. the year of return or the years of return to Ghana. She has been lecturing in Ghana, in Cameroon, does research work in Kenya, is currently lecturing in Arizona State University. And despite her humility, we are in the presence of the summit of African and African American history. Please put your hands together for Professor Lisa Aubrey. So welcome Professor Lisa Aubrey to lecture us on what most of us from Africa and from Cameroon in particular may not be conscious about, but which is also part of our history. A site in Cameroon that is, it is a site that marks a great impact on what today is termed, or what today we call global Africa. Global Africa, that's the term which we're using. I don't know if the term is appropriate, if it's right or wrong, but that's the term which we're using today to talk about people with African heritage, connected to Africa, living everywhere in the world, and yet seeking to reconnect to Africa. And this site, which has been the focus of Professor Lisa Aubrey's research, marked something bigger than we can think. I think Professor Lisa Aubrey is best in her persona to explain and teach us on this side, so we are edified in how we appreciate our own history, our own culture, and how we reconnect to our brothers and sisters across the globe. Once more, put your hands together for Professor Lisa Aubrey.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Karibuni, that is Kiswahili. It means welcome. This evening, I'd like to immerse us in a discussion about Bimbia, a little-known site of transatlantic slavery in Cameroon, in West Central Africa. The title of my talk is Unraveling Who Was Involved in Cameroon and Transatlantic Slavery and Why This Is Important as we speak today. I would first like to thank AfroMix, everyone, and especially the person who introduced me, Arno Ngachu, for inviting me to Aachen and for the warm welcome that I have received. So thank you. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank my brother Boris, Ren Adelaide, for coming here to speak to us with his drum. I'm looking forward. Before my talk, I'd like to and must acknowledge the ancestors and ask for their blessings as we embark on our journey this evening. And this is also especially important in light of the fact that many of our ancestors come from the Cameroon territory. So this is why we have this plant. Most of you probably already know this. And we are going to do what? Pour libation. And ask our ancestors to guide us through these discussions tonight. For libation, we need some libation. We need some drink, and tonight we're going to use water. While we engage this very important ritual, I would like to call out some of the names of those names I came across in my research that were forcibly taken away in transatlantic slavery. With my students, we have over 2,000 names. Can only mention a few tonight, and some of you may recognize some of the names. Iloke, Sam, Ingole, Carme. If you recognize any of the names, or if you also want to mention names, feel free to do so. R. Managor. Kose. Chango. Young. Without the time to call more names, we would like to honor all of our ancestors. Those that were named and also those that were unnamed. I'd like to proceed with our discussion tonight with a film that you've seen some scenes of as we were preparing. The film is called One, O-N-E, and it's about Cameroon, Bimbia, transatlantic slavery, and roots and reconnection. The film tells a bit about my research on Bimbia, which I began in 2010. The film was produced 2016, 2017, so it will take us up to that point, and I'll share more information from my research since that time. In the film, you'll see some of the Bimbia site of transatlantic slavery in the backdrop. You'll also hear perspectives from global Africa, from the continent and the diaspora, on Bimbia, on transatlantic slavery, on historical memory, and the relevance of knowing this history today, and also taking action. Not only the theory, but also bridging the gap with action. The film, One, begins with an African-American named Omar Wilks, who traces his roots on his maternal side using a revolutionary DNA technology to Cameroon, and specifically to the Tikar ethnic group. How many of us have heard of the Tikar ethnic group? Raise your hand. Okay, good. So you will connect with Omar. Omar, through my organization, Roots Reconnection, makes the pilgrimage to Bimbia to release the spirit of his Tikar grandmother, generations past, that were trapped. Our ancestors who were forced aboard these European enslavement ships. They never got proper burials. And we know that that ritual is so absolutely important. So Omar goes to the Bimbia site to release the spirit of his Tikar grandmother. She had been enslaved from the Cameroon territory by Europeans who forcibly took her through the voyage of terror. In the literature, it's called Middle Passage. And that was the passage for those who owned the ships, and those captains and the European crews. But for us, for our ancestors, it was much more in the Middle Passage. It was a voyage of terror, of which many did not survive. So his grandmother was enslaved from the Cameroon territory by Europeans who forcibly took her through the voyage of terror to the U.S., where she served the slaveocracy of Euro-Americans. Omar, as her descendant, is finally able, after his DNA test, to make his journey back home to Cameroon to reconnect with his Tikar maternal roots. In Cameroon, Omar was renamed Bonam, an African name, a name that he should have had because his original, his primordial identity is African. The filmmaker who worked with my organization, Roots Reconnection, for about 10 years, captured the images that you will see of Omar Bonam at Bimbia, a site of transatlantic slavery. So we plan to pause the film periodically to ask questions, but because of time, we'll watch the entire film. We'll have some questions, and then I'll come back to some comments.
I'm here today to pour libations to the Creator, no matter what name you call the Creator. And I'm here today to pour libations to the ancestors. First, I want to give an offering to the Creator. Next, I want to give an offering to the ancestors. We pour libations to the Creator, no matter what you call the Creator, whether it's Obatala, Shango, Oya, Oshun. We pour libations to the gods, to the god and goddesses. Ashe. Next, we pour libations to our loved ones who have passed away. And I'm going to name just a few right now. My father, Alvin Wilks. Ashe. We pour libations to my grandmother. My grandmother, who was brought through the Middle Passage, who was brought through the transatlantic apocalypse, which happens to be the worst Holocaust in world history. My grandmother, who was brought through the door of no return to these shores right here. We will never forget what the ancestors had to endure. They were forced into the bottom of slave ships, rat-infested slave ships. There was women who were enslaved, who were put in the bottom of slave ships and had their babies on slave ships. And we pour libations to them. We pour libations to all the little children who have died right here in the Middle Passage. I remember reading about a mother who was right in this area. And the enslaver came to this mother because he wanted to enslave this mother. And she had her little baby in her arms. And what this enslaver did was rip this mother's child out of her arms and killed the baby right here on these shores. We pour libations to the warrior queens, the women who didn't go down without a fight. It is recorded that the women went down with a fight because they weren't willing to be sent into the bowels of slave ships and brought to an unknown land that would not respect them. And so we say Ashe to all of the women who stood tall as warrior queens. We say Ashe to them.
Questions or comments after you watch something like this? So I think, I'll say it. Thank you. So I think we'll take 5 minutes or so. Questions, comments, anything you'd like to share? Yes, could you tell everyone your name?
Yeah, my name is Mambulu. I come from DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. First of all, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for this documentary. I just would like to share some impressions, yeah, I'm not an English speaking, but what I would like to know is in this process of collecting to your roots, I'm talking to African American. What I'm not seeing here, maybe it will be shown afterwards in the video, is the relationship between the people that come from America, United States, or other countries, in Caribbean, with the local
Yes.
population. This is one question, maybe it will come after.
And that's a very good question. We may cover some of that tonight, but a reconnection is not possible with only one side.
Okay.
So we make it, I mean, it's very obvious to us and extremely important that there must be at least two sides to connect.
The
Yes.
second, this is an impression. Maybe it's also just in our part of the story. Maybe I have also to see the other side of the other part of the video. Is that I feel when I was seeing our what the name is? Bonham. I see that he feels very hungry when he was doing the invasion. And I don't know if it's the right way to talk to our... It's just a question also, and maybe I'm not very expert in this, but I don't know if it's the right way. I can imagine for all of us, when you discover this kind of history or the situation, the first thing is hungry. But afterwards, when you go to the ancestor and you are talking to them, is it the right way? Because he was very angry when he was doing the invasion. I don't know if it's the right way.
Okay, I have two responses, and then and all of your questions deserve more time, so I'm going to be concise. And I actually discuss these issues in my books. So let me first ask, and I'll just pose this question to everyone. What would your reaction be after 500 years of being denied knowing who you are, serving as an enslaved person in someone else's country, trying very hard to trace where your family and your community is from, and not being able to do that. So that's 500 years. So what some may see as anger, some may describe it as 500 years of pain. And how we express that pain, it depends on who we are. And it also depends on the circumstances under which we are living. I think your question is very legitimate. And I also think that the way of seeing what is expressed is through different cultural lens as well, and different experiences. And there's more in the book. Okay? I think that I addressed. So thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Comments? Questions? Observations? Yes. Tell us your name.
So my name is Jean-Pierre Ketinga, and I have a question concerning how you trace exactly the date when the slaves were taken from India and when they arrived in the American continent, and where, in which country they arrived. Exactly, because it may have been difficult because of the information, the research.
Yes, it's not easy. Just some quick things, and then I'm going to ask you to listen to my presentation because it's different parts of it. And the methodology is very challenging. The information is like a puzzle, really, and you start getting pieces, and pieces are in different places, in different countries, in different languages. And I'll mention all of the enslaving countries. So, and as we know, not only Cameroon, but Africa, at least most countries, the archives are not, our own patrimony of archives is not in our, I forget, it's not in our countries, that they're in European countries. So I'll talk a bit about this, and then I may also give an example of one of the ships and take you through the methodology that way. I also want to say that in the course of my own growth and the development of my own consciousness and reading the history void as much as possible from a Eurocentric view, I've come to understand that those who were taken were not slaves. So when we talk about the embarkation of slaves, language is so important. We're talking about the embarkation of free people who were enslaved by Europeans. So people taken from Africa were not slaves. So we've got to rid ourselves of that intentional socialization that makes us think that when Europeans came to Africa, they just tapped into something that was already happening. That's not the truth. The reality is that free people were enslaved. But I would be happy to answer the question as we go along and to talk about the ships. Anyone else? Okay, so I'll try to condense quite a bit and use it as an opportunity to ask to come back to Aachen for what I don't get to present. So we see that we saw Bimbia and we saw the road getting to Bimbia. Bimbia is a place in Cameroon, really only 8 kilometers from Limbe. Anybody know Limbe? We know Limbe, but it's so interesting. Bimbia is so close, but we did not know. And the reason is because information about Bimbia was not only suppressed, it was denied. Not only suppressed, but was denied. And we have got to ask, who was behind the suppression and denial, and who benefits? Cape Coast, Elmina. Lusophone speaking countries, we talk about Angola. So for so many people to have DNA Cameroon, Tikra, Bamileke, Mondo. It was a surprise to many people, so I started looking for the exit points. I said, well, if there are so many ADN Cameroonians, there's an exit point. There has to be an exit point. And I came across Bimbia in a library at Arizona State University. And 2010, I made the first presentation on Bimbia in Cameroon, and it's important to note that Cameroon is the first African country to invite its DNA diaspora back home. And I think that that deserves a commendation, at least from the African Union. So I was a volunteer researcher for a reconnection program, and the reaction of my colleagues and some of the most brilliant people I know, really, some of them said, you're here from the US, you're telling us there's a site of transatlantic slavery in our own backyard. If this was here, we would know. So as good researchers do, they did their own research to validate what I was saying. In fact, they saw that Bimbia was indeed a site. Bimbia, which was not on a map. Bimbia was on a map in the 1800s because I do also cartology research. And in the 1800s, you see Bimbia on a map. And that, yes, so what you saw on those maps, and maps from the 1800s, I see some surprises here. There's Bimbia estuary, there's Bimbia river, and then Bimbia disappears from the map. So it's just after 2010. Yeah, you can check this out yourself. So it's after 2010 that Bimbia, it reappears. Actually, we have to insert it on this map. But you see the proximity to Yaoundé, to Douala, to Boya. So can we go to the next one? So I'm comparing, this is from my book, I'm comparing Bimbia to Gorée, Senegal, Cape Coast, to Elmina in Ghana. This is Benin. This was erected by UNESCO. And this is Francisco de Pinedo Fortress in Angola. I make this comparison. There's much more to say about it, but the most important point is that the size of Bimbia is 56 hectares. I want to repeat this, 56 hectares. UNESCO has declared Bimbia the largest site of transatlantic slavery in all of Africa, in terms of the land space. That's profound. Gorée, c'est un bâtiment. Ghana, Elmina aussi. Yes? This is erected by UNESCO. All of this is very important. All of these histories are very important. But when you look at the massive size of Bimbia, it says a lot. And I believe it's bigger than 56 hectares, and I think as we do more research, we'll find out the size is larger. Can we go to the next one? In addition to locating Bimbia with my students and the first 135 enslavement ships, we also identified that there are other sites of embarkation. There's Ambas Bay, if you've heard Ambas Bay. Yeah, and you all know the Ambassi Bay dance, yeah, connected, yeah. Rio del Rey, it's up toward the Calabar in Nigeria. There's Douala, of course, where I believe there were various points. And also, most recently, there is Malimba. Has anybody heard of Malimba? Malimba is in the Bassa area. So, and I believe that there are more exit points which were embarkation points, and as we do more research, I think that more will be identified. And I just want to pause to say I think it's important to also train the youth, because this is too big of a project to do in one lifetime. So I'm engaged in training youth in US and Cameroon, other students who are interested in this kind of work. To the question that was asked about the ships, what we have here is also repeated in Search of Bimbia. We have the name of the ship, the European country that sailed the ship, the dates, more information, and the disembarkation. The embarkation is important, and for me, the disembarkation is also equally important, so that we can know where the Cameroon diaspora was taken outside of the Cameroon territory. Another book that I've done is called A la Research de Bimbia. You'll get the full title. In that book, I have even more data per ship that includes when we can find, because it's a puzzle and it's patchy, the name of the ship owner, the captain, the numbers of men, women, and children, because at least 1/3 of the ships that we located transported children, enslaved children. The youngest age that we were able to identify was age 2. And they were separated from their families, enslaved. To date, can we go to the next one? All right, so this is from UNESCO. It's not very clear, but you have the site where you see the tentative list for consideration of World Heritage Sites, and that is a page on Cameroon. And the communities were also involved, and I think this gets to your question a bit, as resistors to and victims of transatlantic slavery, especially based on the group size in the African diaspora determined by the frequency of DNA test results. The other communities that were involved, the TICAR, having the highest frequency of DNA test results and hence the largest ethnic group among the Cameroon diaspora. Second, the Bamileke. Third, Hausa. After Hausa, Fulani, Massa, Iwando, and Kotoko, and other ethnic groups as well, too many to name here. And these groups also included groups that are closer to the coast, like the Bakwere and the Douala. But it's fair to say, based on the evidence, that most of the test results suggest that most of the enslaved came from the grass fields. In fact, no ethnic group was safe. And as a colleague says, there was terror across the land. Bangante stands out in this discussion, because what we are told is that a farm from Bangante was taken to Bimbia as he stood up to defend his people and said to Europeans, "You will take no more of my people into slavery." And the oral history says Bangante means we stand. So I think we see why this is important today to talk about Bimbia, roots and reconnection. It's first for me a human rights issue, that all of us have the right to know who we are. That's the first of all human rights. And it's a human rights issue for Africans on the continent to know their families that were taken away, that were torn away from them, It's a human rights issue to know them and to have them back with them. These are also cultural rights issues. And for me, human rights and cultural rights have a spiritual foundation. And we must begin there. It's also about individual empowerment, like Omar, about global African empowerment, by putting the whole back together again. Because the continent and diaspora, we are really each other's missing parts. It's about putting the whole back together again and charting a way forward culturally, economically, politically. So just imagine if the 5 conventional regions of Africa and African diaspora, the 6th region, are together. Just imagine what force we can be as one. So it's Roots and Reconnection time. So, thank you. I have more, but I think we've said a lot tonight.
Some question?
Questions, comments?
No, I think for today we will take a break and we'll let Boris give us some music. So Boris will speak to us in music, so we will enjoy the night in those terms. I'm looking forward to having Lisa here again. Session 2 of this lecture is programmed for July 2023, and hopefully the resonance and the feedback of what we've covered today will inspire other people to join and commune in building this global Africa. I hope we have enough information to share with the world, share with global Africa, and hopefully keep on moving and pushing for the Roots and Reconnection program, reconnecting with family, knowing who we are, getting better, well, being our best selves. I think that will be a good thing to experience in our lifetime, and at least give that to the next generation as their own African heritage. Thank you. Boris, please keep us moving. Thank you. Thank you, Jacques. And thank you all for coming. And I hope you've had a pleasant experience. And we're looking forward to next sessions or next events which we'll be producing within this program and within this structure.